Back during the early 2010s, the Kansas State Wildcats football team were a threat in the Big 12. They played in back-to-back BCS Bowls in 2011 and 2012 and put up seasons where they won 10 and 11 games respectively. Bill Snyder was the man in charge of those teams, and his quarterback on that team was Collin Klein. Klein was a member of the Wildcats football team from 2009 to 2012 and brought Kansas State back to the top of the conference. He torched the college football world in his 2 seasons as the starter and was a threat running and passing the ball. He even finished 3rd in the Heisman race in 2012 and appeared on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. But what happened to Colin Klein? In today's video, we'll be looking at Colin's football career to date and looking at what happened to him after college. Colin was born on September 19, 1989 in Loveland, Colorado. He would later go on to attend his local high school of Loveland High, where he played both football and basketball. Colin was a multi-sport athlete, but was diverse in his array of talents, where he also learned how to play the piano, the mandolin, and the violin. His ability to do multiple things followed him onto the football field, where he would become a star dual-threat quarterback at his high school. By the time he graduated from high school in 2008, he stood at 6'4", which is a good range for a quarterback. Klein was a legend at his school, where he set records for completion percentage and all-purpose yards. With that and his frame considered, you might think Klein had plenty of offers thrown at him, but that just wasn't the case. Despite being a 3-star recruit, he only had one official offer from a Power 5 program, and that was from Kansas State, which he took and committed to before his senior season began. Upon arriving at KSU, he would redshirt his first season in 2008, and in 2009 he moved to wide receiver. He had great size, and because his arm wasn't elite and they were loaded at quarterback, the move to wide receiver was an experiment. He would catch just 6 passes for 38 yards in his freshman season, but still, Colin knew he wanted to be a quarterback. He would spend his time after practices throwing to other receivers and act as if he were in the quarterback's shoes during games, reading the defenses and looking off the safety. After this season, Klein moved back to quarterback. He put up a good fight for the starting job in 2010, but Carson Kaufman ultimately won the job over him. Klein was the backup, and after just a few games, he would see some action. He scored his first touchdown for the school on a 51-yard run in a late blowout against Kansas. Later in the season, Kaufman got injured, and Klein's legacy began against the Texas Longhorns on November 6, 2010. Klein rushed for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. He earned the start the following week against Missouri and put up another impressive performance, rushing for 141 yards and throwing a touchdown. Once Kaufman recovered, he retained the starting job, but Klein had made his mark. He would finish off his redshirt sophomore campaign with 432 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, and 132 yards passing with another touchdown. With his good rushing ability, he got a lot of opportunities to run the ball, but didn't get too much of an opportunity to pass the ball. Kaufman would graduate after the 2010 season, giving Klein a good chance at being the 2011 starter. And after scoring 5 touchdowns in the spring game, he won the starting job. His first season starting got off to a good start, but his performance against Baylor in the 4th game of the season is what caught a lot of people's attention. At home against number 15 Baylor on ABC, Klein rushed for 113 yards and a touchdown and threw for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns to give the Wildcats a 1-point win over the Bears. The university itself started to receive more national recognition as they earned a spot in the top 25, and Klein's name continued to grow. He put in some good performances, but none were bigger than 2 back-to-back games against Oklahoma State and Texas A&M. After losing the previous week to Oklahoma, Klein stepped up in a huge way against Oklahoma State to give KSU a chance to win, totaling 4 touchdowns on the day with over 200 yards passing and 130 yards rushing. Unfortunately, the Wildcats lost that game again, but Klein followed up that great performance with 6 total touchdowns and almost 400 total yards against Texas A&M the following week, with a win to go along with it. Kansas State would end the season with a 10-3 record and a number 15 finish in the AP poll, which was their highest finish since 2003. Klein's junior season ended with 27 rushing touchdowns, 1,141 yards rushing, 1,900 yards passing, and 13 passing touchdowns. The hype surrounding Klein in the university just continued to grow the following 2012 season, and Klein came out much better than the year before. He grew as a passer this year, and after having just 2 games with at least 200 yards passing in 2011, he had 6 such games in 2012. Klein kicked off the season with a great performance against Miami and then got revenge against Oklahoma. His first 5 weeks were good, but the following 5 weeks were just unreal. Starting with a 3 rushing touchdown performance against Iowa State, Colin followed that game up with one of his best games of the season and possibly his college career. He threw for 323 yards, 3 touchdowns, and rushed for 4 more touchdowns against West Virginia. He did all this while completing 19 of his 21 total passes on the day. This game catapulted his Heisman status, and after winning the next 3 games after this, Kansas State jumped all the way up to the #1 rank in the nation. This is around the time where Klein would appear on Sports Illustrated, and the hype surrounding both the university and Klein peaked. But Kansas State didn't end the season too well, going 1-2 over their final 3 weeks with a loss on the road to Baylor that ruined the team's chances at the national championship. Collin had picked up an injury against Oklahoma State a few weeks prior, and it appeared that he just wasn't the same, as his accuracy had dipped, and that really showed against TCU and Baylor. Still, they beat Texas to win the Big 12, made it to the Fiesta Bowl, but unfortunately they lost. Kansas State finished at number 12 in the AP poll at 11-2, and Klein's college career was over. In his final season, Klein threw for over 2,500 yards with 16 touchdowns and raised his completion percentage all the way up to 65%, which was an improvement from the 57% completion percentage the year before. On the ground, he ran for 920 yards with 23 touchdowns on over 100 fewer carries than the previous year. He accomplished a lot in his 2 seasons as the starter and accomplished a lot at the university, even finishing 3rd in the Heisman Trophy race. He also collected the Big 12 Player of the Year honors, the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, and the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award in 2012. But unfortunately for Collin, his professional football career didn't last long. He received an invite to the NFL Combine, but only as a tight end, and he wanted to remain as a quarterback. Collin went undrafted, receiving an invite to the Houston Texans minicamp, but he didn't leave with an offer. After this, he signed a 2-year deal with the Montreal Alouettes in the CFL in 2014, but was released on June 15th of 2014. So why didn't Collin play professionally? Well, for Collin, he didn't have the best arm talent in the nation. Scouts compared him to Tim Tebow in terms of arm talent and mechanics, and many weren't willing to take a chance on him, which is why he was asked to work out at a different position. On his CBS Sports draft profile, it stated that Klein has a funky delivery with a hitch in his cocking motion, causing a longer delivery and inconsistent accuracy on passes downfield. And although he did improve on his completion percentage from his junior to senior season, that deep ball was a major question. But even as a dual threat quarterback, his speed and accuracy just wasn't what scouts were looking for either, and his measurables were better suited for a tight end rather than a quarterback. Scouts also saw his background as a wide receiver and thought that he might have a chance to go pro as a pass catcher. The injury that he sustained towards the end of his college career also ruined his chances at the Heisman and maybe going further. His injury was kept private and there wasn't much said about it, so upon researching, I couldn't find what injury he specifically had, but his accuracy had definitely dipped after it. Even in the East and West Shrine game, he completed just 5 of 13 passes for 47 yards and an interception. So with professional football out of the picture, what is he doing now? He's presently doing just fine. After not being able to play professional football, he didn't let that affect him in a negative way. He entered straight into coaching in 2014 and served as a grad assistant at Kansas State before going to Northern Iowa as the quarterback's coach in 2016. He would later return back to his alma mater, where he served as the quarterback's coach and co-offensive coordinator, and is currently still at the university as the quarterback coach. But the legacy of Colin Klein is something that some college football fans will hold on to forever, and he's a name that K-State fans won't ever forget. This has been a video on Colin Klein. Thank you guys so much for watching, subscribe if you're new, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.